It was late autumn when daylight faded earlier than desired. The grey sky hung low over the ground, heavy as a stone. The hero, Danilo, has long wanted to get out of the city, break away from studies and endless routine. His friend, Nazar, supported this idea without any doubt. They decided to go to the forest for 2 days, to take tents, a fire, night silence, and peace. Only one forest was talked about in whispers by everyone in their area, Chornivsky. Distant, old, thick, and somehow always colder than the others. Some said that there was once a settlement there, which disappeared overnight. Others, that no animal lives there. Others say that the trees are watching there. They smiled when they talked about it, but sometimes real fear flashed in their eyes. Danilo and Nazar did not believe in mystical nonsense. That is why they chose that particular forest. Their road lay along the old path, which still clung to the heap, although the ground beneath their feet was sinking from time to time. The forest was surprisingly quiet. Too quiet. No singing of birds, no rustling of the wind. The leaves didn't seem to move at all, even as the boys walked by. How is it here? It's quiet, muttered Nazar, looking around. That's good, Danilo smiled. No people, no noise. Maybe, but it feels like something is watching. Danilo laughed, but the laugh sounded somehow short, as if it got squeezed between the dark trees and disappeared. They found a small clearing near an old crooked oak. It was so thick it looked as if it had been standing there for centuries. Its branches, twisted, whimsical, resembled hands reaching for the sky. They pitched their tents, gathered firewood, and lit a fire. The fire crackled, sending sparks into the air, which immediately died out in the suffocating air of the forest. This silence began to get to them. It was not natural, but somehow expected. When it got dark, the boys sat by the fire and talked about everything and nothing. They laughed and joked, but at some point, Danilo noticed that Nazar was constantly scowling in the direction of the trees. What are you? It seems to me that someone is standing between those fir trees, whispered Nazar. Danilo turned around. There was nothing there. You are screwing yourself up. Maybe. Even then, Nazar swallowed nervously several times, as if something was bothering him. Around 1 a.m, they decided to go to bed. Danilo fell asleep almost immediately. Nazar spun around for a long time, trying not to listen to the forest, breathing. About an hour later, Danilo woke up from a light scratch. It was quiet, but intrusive, as if someone were running their fingernails along the fabric of the tent. At first, he thought it was a branch, but the sound was even, clear, with short pauses. Shoo! 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 He rose cautiously, froze, listening. The scratching moved closer to the entrance of the tent. Nazar, he whispered. Silence. He looked outside. The second tent was dark, but nearby the fire was almost extinguished, only faintly smoldered. Nazar! His voice, although quiet, trembled. And then he saw. Nazar was standing near the tree, facing the trunk, still, as if listening to something. What are you doing? Danilo came closer. Nazar slowly turned his head. His eyes looked empty and his skin pale in the moonlight. They're talking, he whispered. Who? Trees. Danilo grabbed his shoulder. Are you sleeping or what? Nazar suddenly twitched, as if he had woken up. I don't know. I heard someone calling me. Someone with a child's voice. Danilo forced his friend to sit by the fire. While they made the fire stronger, Nazar nervously looked around and whispered, I swear, someone walked there between the trees. Small, like a child. I heard him laugh. There are no children here. You were going crazy from the darkness. But Danilo was starting to worry. This silence, these scratches, something was wrong. At 2 o'clock in the morning, it became much worse. The forest suddenly began to make noise. Not like the wind. It was a strange, uneven rustle, as if dozens of people were walking among the trees, but did not come to the light. The fire crackled louder than it should have, and the shadows of the trees moved as if they had a life of their own. "Do you hear that?" Nazar whispered, clutching the knife. "Maybe it's the wind." There was no wind here all day. Suddenly something ran between the trees, fast, low, too dark to be an animal. Nazar jumped up. "Did you see it? But this..." Another move, closer this time. The fire illuminated only a piece of forest, but the boys definitely saw a dark silhouette running a few meters away from them. And then they heard laughter. Baby, thin, dry. But there was nothing human in this laughter. Nazar began to retreat back. "Let's get together and run away immediately." Danilo wanted to agree, but suddenly somewhere in the darkness a voice rang out, a familiar one. "Dear, any aisle?" He froze. It was his little sister's voice. She was at home dozens of kilometers away. "Don't listen," Nazar hissed. "Don't listen. Do you hear? And how? This is not a person." The voice rang out again, now closer. "Danala! Help!" Something rustled in the grass. Out of the darkness appeared a small figure, short like a child's, but its legs were strangely bent, as if broken in several places. The figure stood with his head slightly bowed. Her face was hidden by a shadow. Nazar threw a burning branch at her. The figure leaped back, but not like a human. It leaped back too quickly, too quietly, and she froze again among the trunks. And then they saw something else. The shadows, long, thin, inhuman. Dozens of silhouettes began to emerge between the trees, gradually, without a sound. The boys did not understand if these were real creatures or if the darkness itself began to take shape. "Let's run," Danilo whispered. "Let's just run." They grabbed what they could, dropped some of their gear, and ran through the woods. There was a faint path ahead, but for some reason it looked different than during the day. It seemed that the trees had moved closer together, changed their location, as if the forest had reshaped itself at night. Footsteps sounded behind them, many steps, scattered, chaotic, but incredibly fast. "Don't look back," Nazar shouted. But Danilo looked around and regretted it. Behind ran a black mass of silhouettes, thin, tall, curvy. Some moved as if their limbs were broken. The others moved without a sound, gliding along the ground. And between them, small dark figures that laughed, distorting the sounds of human speech. The boys ran until the air began to sting their throats and their legs burned with pain. Nazar tripped and fell. "Get up!" Danilo shouted, grabbing his friend's hand. But Nazar just looked somewhere ahead, his eyes widened with horror. "There! They are ahead!" Danilo turned around. And indeed, ahead, between the trees, there was a tall shadow. One silhouette. But he was 10 times taller than a man. His long arms almost touched the ground. The silhouette slowly raised its head. And then the night was filled with the most terrible sound that Danilo had heard in his life. A dull, low moan that turned into a roar, as if the forest itself was sobbing. The boys turned and ran in the other direction. When they ran to a familiar clearing, instead of relief, they felt only cold horror. A clearing with tents was in front of them. No, that's impossible," whispered Nazar. We ran straight. The tent stood motionless. The fire went out. Everything looked like before. The forest was quiet as in the beginning. It's a trap, said Nazar. We are trapped. I don't understand. Suddenly, one of the tents quietly moved, as if someone was inside, and then a whisper was heard from inside. Quiet, hoarse, inhuman. Go back! Inside! Nazar started to cry. Danilo clenched his fist so that his nail dug into his skin. We are running away again, and we are not stopping. Where? The forest itself leads us in circles. We will go until dawn. They stepped back and stopped, because from under the ground, on the border of the meadow and trees, hands began to slowly come out. Black, long, thin. There were dozens of them. They reached out to the boys as if inviting them back. They ran all night. Several times fell, rose, heard voices, saw silhouettes. Time dissolved. The forest gave neither a chance to get out nor a chance to hide. At last they came to a place where the trees became thinner and the sky lighter. Light, Danilo whispered. We are getting out. But the light was not coming. It stood still like a painted spot. They walked towards it for a minute, 5, 10, and it didn't get any closer. Nazar, exhausted, fell to his knees. It's an endless night. They won't let us out. Get up, Nazar. It is, behind our backs. Danilo turned around. Behind them stood all the shadows they had seen in the night. High, small ones twisted empty, and in front of them is the same gigantic silhouette. He bent down, his faceless face close to the boys. And then there was silence. Deaf absolute. The boys shouted, but their voices were not heard. Darkness engulfed everything. The morning tourists who got lost in the Chorny forest found 2 empty tents on the lawn, as if someone left and never came back. The tents were intact. Things are intact. Only new scratches appeared on the trunk of the old oak tree. Deep, torn. They formed 2 words. She took it. And at night, that forest is just as silent, and everything is still waiting.